You're starting. I'll stand next to you if you want.
No, that's fine. I just didn't know.
I'll let you open the room.
All right, we'll see. All right, everyone. And they're awesome. Not so, hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I am Anita Cruz, Dean of Chicago College of Law, and I am so happy to see all of you here today. It's really, really wonderful. And everyone online too, and my camera's sort of off to the side here, but I'm going to not ignore you. We're very happy to have you participate remotely as well. And we, meaning Chicago Kent, are simply thrilled to be hosting the 2022 Cali Conference here at Chicago Kent, and we really haven't done it in quite some time. The second conference, Cali Conference, was in this building, and then the building opened in 1992, so this would be in the early 90s, and the next 6 Cali Cons up until 1998 were also held here at Chicago Kent, and in 1999 Cali started visiting other schools in terms of hosting its wonderful conference. Now the most recent Cali Con at Chicago Kent was in 2013, and we had actually planned to return here to the building for conferences in 2020 or 21. But of course, the pandemic intervened, told us otherwise, and of course we did not do that. So having CaliCon here this year, or CaliCon, what do we call it? Having CaliCon here this year is a great pleasure for me and for everyone here at Chicago Kent. So again, welcome. Now, the pandemic, as we all are aware, required that the entire legal education community come together and tackle the challenge of proceeding with legal education using technology such as Zoom, such as Cali Lessons. And seemingly everyone recognized this challenge and really stepped up. And as a result, most law schools survived the pandemic really quite admirably. Now, of course, we're returning to a normal, but a new normal that is informed by much better facility with the use of tech in legal education, and much better understanding of how tech can be a valuable tool for achieving our strategic educational objectives. And this means that now, more than ever before, there is a need for law faculty, law librarians, as well as tech staff to share best practices and to collaborate to meet whatever challenges and to take advantage of whatever opportunities the future may bring. So what are those best practices in using tech in legal education, and how do we most effectively collaborate with one another in applying tech in legal education? Well, stay tuned because those are the critical topics of this CaliCon, and so I'll let you get to it. Welcome again, and I hope you enjoy it. I know you will. So thank you so much again.
Right. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. Hey, welcome to Cali Conference. My name is John Mayer, and I'm the executive director of Cali, and this is our 32nd conference. I love that we're in a law school classroom. It's always been, the Cali Conference has always been a bit of a, if you've ever heard the term busman's holiday. No? Yes? The idea that, you know, the busman takes a vacation, goes to another city, and what does he do? He rides the buses to see how they do it there. So this is a conference where you leave your law school and go to other law schools and see how they arrange their seats or put in their technology and such. This is a bit of a weird conference. I always have to remember there's more people online than there are in the room. So I'll be talking to these people instead. Anyhow, got a lot. That's funny.
Yeah.
Supposedly the touchscreen works. Oh, it does work. There we go. So the first conference was called the Conference for Law School Competing Professionals, and it was not in this building, as the dean mentioned. It was in the old law school building, which used to be an insurance agency that had been retrofitted into a law school. And ever since then, the idea of the conference was, let's see if we can go visit all the other law schools that have built a brand new building, because through the 90s and the aughts and until fairly recently, although it's still happening, the idea of a brand new law school was also a huge investment in technology. And so there was something to talk about. Whether or not you pulled Ethernet or ArcNet or Token Ring. Okay, boy, I'm really dating myself, sorry. We actually had a presentation on wireless at about the third conference using PCM CIA cards. I don't know if you remember those that used to slide into laptops. All right. So we've transformed and rebooted and unbound legal education. I once came out dressed as a Lego man. This was way before the Lego movie, by the way. The most recent time we were here at Chicago Kent, the theme was driving innovation. And I had my hats upstairs. I'll wear it at the next break or something like that. We've had next waves and dangerous years of learning. We've had drum circles and engaging and paradigm shifts. And then we had the pandemic years where the conference turned into something that was entirely online, right? And so what we have left is this thing, which is sort of partially online and partially in person, probably not serving either master perfectly, but doing the best we can under the circumstances, right? Because the pandemic is still happening. All right. I'd like to thank our sponsors. We have a few this year: National Society for Legal Technology. Doug, thank you. Downing EdTech, Procertus. Joe, thank you. Exam for Integrity. Greg, thank you. And of course, Justy and Tim Stanley, who have generously supported this conference. Of course, I want to thank Chicago Kent for having us and not charging us rent for this room. I always want to thank my board of directors who continue to employ me for some reason. I have some bad news, however. This is actually hard to talk about, but Brownie Lewis, who is on our board of directors, passed away about a week ago. It was unexpected. She was at a conference. I have no other information other than her passing. And Brownie was somebody who was, if you'd ever met her or dealt with her, she was a personality, and she pushed me and pushed Tally to do better. And she will be greatly missed. She was also the author of 3 case books and of 2 Tally lessons. And so we're going to miss that as well. Put a blank screen in for a moment of silence. All right, to continue our housekeeping. So there's a reception tonight. It's on the 10th floor. It's called Morris Hall. There will be drinks. There will be food. So be sure to stop by. Emily Barney wanted me to let you know that there will be a library tour today and a tech tour tomorrow. starting at about a half hour, no? Oh, boy. All right, the tech tour is today, the library tour is tomorrow. And the tech tour starts here, so just gather here. You're gonna be getting your lunch, all the food is right outside the door anyhow. And the library tour, if you're looking for it, go up to the 9th floor, and that's the entrance to the library, right? There's a raffle. We do raffles at this conference, right? And I just wanted to give you a little preview of some of the things. We're giving away lightsabers, lightsaber pairs and chopstick lightsabers. I don't know. Any of you have trouble with those safety pens on planes? We once gave away these survival pens because they had like a little sharp end. The idea was if your car ever went into a river, you could use that pen. Of course, you got your Cali pen to smash out the window. We'll be giving away some Death Wish coffee. It's the most caffeinated coffee on the market. They spent a night vision binocular. My favorite headset, the HyperX, and a couple of bars of All One Hemp Peppermint Dr. Bronner's Pure Castile bar soap. You know, when you use that, it makes your skin tingle. I love it. Helped me get through the pandemic. And one of the big things is a VR headset from Meta, which you'll probably have to replace in 2 years with whatever VR Plus or VR Turbo or VR 2.0 is. But at least you can start to use it and tell us how that VR thing is working. And finally, Justia gave us a nice bit of money that we turned into a bunch of gift cards. So I don't know, the number is going to be like 20 or 30% of the people in the conference should get something out of the raffle. It's ridiculous, right? So, you know, and even you people online, right? You don't have to be present to win. No. Staff, board members, and sponsors are not eligible. Sorry. All right. Oh, it's getting warm in here. I'm going to take my coat off. So I actually bought a pair of plaster construction stilts. You know what those are? Those are stilts that the people wear so that they can walk around and plaster the ceilings and things like that. And I was going to build a puppet around it and walk in with that, like I've done weird things at past conferences. And the metaphor that I was going for was the 40 years of Cali isn't about Cali. It's about community on whose shoulders we stand upon. When I practiced getting on the stilts in the last 2 weeks, I almost broke my leg several times. Fortunately, I fell in the grass. I knocked things over. I even had sticks that I was trying to do, and I looked like one of those kangaroo animals from that movie. What was that called? The Dark Crystal. I don't know if you've ever seen that with the the kangaroo things. Yeah. It was fun, but I decided that it would be too dangerous to even walk down these stairs, and I might have bumped my head. But I wanted to tell you about that because the conference is about that sort of thing. We're here to bring together the groups that are part of law school: tech people, law librarians, law faculty, and ed tech. And I kind of want to do a little talk right now, which won't be terrifically long, 20-25 minutes, I hope. That covers a lot of ground about Cali and about our community. All right. So I call this 40 years of legal ed tech, E to J. And let's get started. So first of all, what's today? Today's the 9th or the 8th? 9th. So in 2 days is Cali's 40th birthday. Right? There it is. The corporation shall not have capital stock. Nobody's getting rich here. We have hereunto subscribed our names this 11th day of June, AD 1982. And that's in our articles of incorporation, which of course is our long form birth certificate for Cali, right? So back in 1982, I'm like, oh, well, what was going on in 1982? You know, you always want to start with that. So I decided to do some deep research, and the best place to find out things about the past, which of course is Cracker Barrel. And you go to Cracker Barrel and you can get one of these things, right? And you see that in 1982, it was Michael Jackson's Thriller, and trending was koosh balls and shoulder pads and Walkmans and Rubik's Cubes. We thought about giving away Rubik's Cubes for that reason, but and awesome music like Eye of the Tiger and Ebony and Ivory and Culture Club. So I know all you young kids are going, oh man, the boomer. Okay, boomer, right? Well, there was a lot more going on in 1982. That was the year that some guy attached a bunch of weather balloons to his lawn chair and launched himself. It was also the year that Cats came out. How many of you seen the movie? Oh my God, this is bad. All right. It was also, and relevant to Cali, about the time, it was the beginnings of personal computers, very beginnings, right? The Apple II was a 78 thing, and so it started to spread. The IBM PC, of course, was in 1981. And in 1983, I bought actually my second at that point, but my first PC compatible K-Pro 10. Which is awesome. It was like it was a portable, which is to say it was portable as a 55-pound sewing machine. Right? But I did a lot of coding on that damn thing in D-Base, by the way. It was also the time when there was such a thing as a Laserdisc. A Laserdisc being this giant CD, DVD looking thing that stored a lot of video. And Callie was actually working on projects involving Laserdiscs. All right. So I looked back at the board of directors at that time, and I've only met two of these people. And I think only two of them are alive at this point, by the way. But I knew of some of them, but not much. So I did a little Googling to learn more about the people that were and what they were thinking when they started, beyond what I could read on the board minutes or other documents from that time. And I ran across Don Marshall, and I plucked some quotes here. I've heard it said many times that Don was the best teacher to ever appear in this law school. High praise indeed. He was very smart, always exceptionally well prepared, a master in the classroom. But this caught me. When Marshall retired, a banner hung in the law school with his motto, "Never whisper justice." I love that. Never whisper justice. I should say that louder. Never whisper justice. Apropos of the time. Russ Burris became a professor in ed psychology, where he ran the Center for Research in Human Learning. Then he moved to the law school. He wasn't the lawyer. He was Callie's first executive director. He was but he had a joint appointment in psychology and at the law school at the University of Minnesota. He was a co-founder of Callie. Don Troutman was a leader in the use of computers in legal education, served as a faculty advisor to the school's ed tech department. They had an ed tech department in 1982? Maybe not in 82, right? Maybe it was later, but he was president of Cali from 82 to 86. You know, and he was even involved in a project where Cali was doing automation of court forms and providing guidance or advice, no, wrong word, guidance to self-represented litigants. It was called Project Pericles. I believe one of our presenters today or tomorrow, Mark Lauritsen, might have actually been like a teenager when he was working on that project. So I pulled this report out from 1985. So this is what Cali was supposed to be about, and what I believe it has become. The purposes of this corporation shall be to advance law learning, teaching, and research by the use of computers, I love this part, and related materials and devices. So maybe they were anticipating something that goes beyond just the computer on a desktop, right? Such purposes shall include, but not limited to, helping law teachers to develop knowledge and skills related to the effective law learning, teaching and research, educating law students, bar associations, law firms, individual lawyers, judges, and other individuals. I think I can drive a truck to that and other individuals there, right? Which is to say, I think legal education and legal literacy is something that I'm seeing more need or importance of for the public and other individuals and groups and the public, providing advice, sponsoring seminars and institutes, gathering data and exchanging information among members. Here we are. of the corporation and other institutions and individuals, and participating in other activities. All right. That's a pretty broad remit. That gives us a lot of room, a lot of elbow room to do a lot of interesting things. So the thing that got Cali started was Cali lessons, and there are some papers you can read, but I'm going to sort of paraphrase some conversations I had. In fact, Levon Mulder, who was with Cali for even before it was Cali, so more than 40 years. One of her last three or four conferences ago, I bought her a couple of martinis, and she told me this story where this group of people came to the university and said, we've got this thing that does programmed instruction. It wasn't Plato, if you've ever heard of Plato at U of I, but it was very similar, and it was another project like that. And they invited all the deans or the heads of the various colleges at the U of M, University of Minnesota, to see the demo. And the only one to pick up on it and follow through was the law school, because they got the idea that, wait a minute, the Socratic method, which is how we predominantly teach the law, ask a question, follow up with an answer, follow up with another question, change the facts, branch and move down sort of a programmed path, can be modeled inside of a computer program. And so that's what they did. They built Cali lessons as decision tree walkers that would essentially be chatbots. They would throw up text for the student, they would answer, and then it would either give you a right or wrong, or it would give you some feedback and then branch you off and say, now consider if we change the facts or something like that. And this lesson by Roger Park, is still around today, doing the same sort of a thing, allowing for branching and interaction for law students. So what I want to do really fast is do sort of a best of 40 years, some insights, ideas, nothing scientific or anything like that. And I'm sure after this, you'll have ideas of things I forgot or I should have added. And then because it's only fair, I'm going to do a little bit of a worst of 40 years, right? And then, because it's obvious, then you do the next 40 years, right? All right, but that will be the shortest part of this. So let's start with the best. So first of all, I'm going to start with something really boring. I think one of the best things that Cali has done is have a flat membership fee. Right? It's so simple. It works. I mean, instead of trying to calculate schools based on size, instead of having complicated accounting, we deal with every institution as an institution, and this is what our dues have been over the years. It started out at $2,000.83. It's doubled twice in 40 years. 2021, it's $8,000. Right. It's just made the administrative life or the sustainability of this operation work so well. All right. Here's one, and this is a story you may not have ever heard about Cali, but in the 90s, we didn't own Cali lessons. The model for Cali was that the authors owned their work, and you ran the lessons on your computers, and there was a little program surveilling. Just like the internet, there was a cookie, except it wasn't, right? It was a little plink being put into a database every time a student ran a lesson. And at the end of the year, we would send you, actually not even me, this was pre-me, before me. Cali would send diskettes, and you would put those diskettes into all the individual computers. This was before networks, and it would download how many times each lesson was run. And so we would end up with a count of all the lessons and how many each time was run. And Cali would chop off 15% of the dues that was collected that year, and then give a percentage of that dues based on the percentage of those lesson runs to the author. And it kind of worked for a while, up until we got to about 80 or 90 lessons. And then some disparities in that started to show. Right? People who were writing lessons for 1L courses, where there's lots of students running lots of lessons, or writing lessons that benefited from multiple runs, because multiple runs meant more nickels, did way better than people that wrote lessons in environmental law or wills and trusts or something like that. And so as an incentive, it didn't work. Right? And so in the 90s, we pivoted. We went back to all the authors and we bought the intellectual property of the lessons back from them and changed our model to one where we now contract with authors to write lessons, and we, or Callie, owns the intellectual property. And that was the beginning of the big scale up. You know, from that time in the mid 90s to today, we went from 100 lessons to over 1,200 lessons being made available. So it was a good move. It was a good move. Another good thing, free casebooks. Who could argue with free casebooks, right? It was a project we started back in 2006. And although it's not about the money, it's not about the free as in the dollars, it's about the free as in it gives faculty and students the ability to do whatever they want with material. So I think this is an area that I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that. Here's another inside baseball one. In the very early times on PCs, the original Kali authoring systems were written in Pascal. I believe it was UCSD Pascal, later became Turbo Pascal. Wow, okay, boomer. But the idea was brilliant because at the time they chose to separate the code, which was the lesson, the text that was presented to the students, from the code that ran it. Right? And matter of fact, the code that was the text was marked up in a markup language invented by Kali. This was a decade before HTML. This was around the time of SGML, but it hadn't been known well. I mean, I really admire those that approach, because it was something that became ubiquitous, of course, with the invention of browsers and the internet later. The second part of that was the idea of an authoring system that you would hand to faculty who were not technically inclined, and they could learn a little bit of markup, and they could write their own Kali lesson without having to have a smelly technical person at their elbow. No, okay. Without having to have a programmer, no, let me change that. Without having to have an expensive programmer at their elbow, right? Because programmer time was precious, right? So separation of content from code all the way back into the early 80s, and no code before it was cool. Right? That was awesome. And if I'm going to talk about no code, I got to talk about A to J author. Right? If you don't know what A to J author is, it's a software tool used by legal aid and courts to automate court forms for self-representing litigants. Started out as a sabbatical. The Kali board, after I'd been with Kali for 7 years, said, "John, why don't you take a year off and write a book or write some articles or stuff like that?" And instead, I joined a project here at Chicago Kent where the Institute of Design and the law school sent people to courts to watch self-represented litigants stumble and bumble their way through the hellscape that is our justice system. And of course, it opened up my eyes. And out of that project came a book with a whole bunch of ideas. And out of that book came the idea that we could help if we created an authoring system. Again, separation of code and content, again, a markup language or a no code sort of thing, so that you didn't have to have expensive programmers at the elbow of legal aid attorneys. And it's been a wild success. It's helped millions, over 7 million people have used A to J author guided interviews. It's a great teaching tool, because if you want to automate a court form for students, if they want to learn how to automate a court form, you have to understand the underlying law. And we believe that in the future, actually in the present, an awful lot of law practice is going to be automated. At least what I would call the easy parts of law practice should all be automated so that lawyers have more time to do the fun stuff. And it was mostly paid for with grants outside of Kali, so we didn't lean too heavily on the membership, but membership did pay for some of that. And that means that law schools have a stake in dealing with or solving or addressing the access to justice issue, which people have come and told me, "Thank you, Kali, for helping us with that." So A to J author, one of our best projects. And of course, the Kali conference, I have to put that in there, 32 years so far. The raffles are open and inclusive call for speakers. We don't decide what we're going to talk about at the conference. We nudge people maybe. but we open it up and let anybody come in. And as a result, we get people who may not be able to get opportunities to speak at other conferences. And so this is a great Bush League AAA for conferences and for people to go on to become better speakers or at other places. It's a melting pot of legal education, right? How many of you is this your first conference? How many less than 3, let's say? Yeah, welcome. How many of you more than 10? Oh, okay. I wish we could do a poll, Elmer. So I put that food in there. Put it in the issue queue. So I put that food and feedback in there because there's a funny story there. Long about the time we were, I don't know, maybe 7th or 8th conference, we did a survey at the end. And I was reading one of the surveys and it asked, it was a Likert scale, 1 through 5, 5 being the best, right? And the first question was like, how were the presentations? And it was 1. It's like, well, how were the vendors? 1. How were the speakers? 1. The venue? 1. I'm like, somebody really didn't like this. It's like, how was the food? 5. Overall conference? 5. I'm like, don't screw up the food. So that's why there's snacks at every single break. That's why in the swag boxes that we hope have arrived in time, there's snacks in there, and that's why we like to have a lot of fun at the Cali conference.
But there's also the John's Healthy Years.
Oh. So in 2008, I had quintuple bypass surgery on my 47th birthday, 46th, yeah, my 47th birthday. And after that, I said, it's carrots and celery for everybody. I don't care. I think we had a lot of carrot and celery and hummus at all the breaks, and it showed up in the reviews. Yeah. Why should we have to suffer that you're got such bad hearts? All right. What else? Other good things. Fellowships. Fellowships was, and I'm going to break my arm patting myself in the back because it was me and Deb and who thought this up. The Fellowships was a brilliant model for getting lots of Cali lessons written, right? We used to sort of, go to try to find people to write lessons, or they would come to us. And in Fellowships, we would actively solicit for 5 faculty to write 5 or 10 lessons over 5 or 6 months. So at the end, we would get 25 brand new lessons that we could publish all at once. And, when you dribble out, oh, we got a new lesson here, a new lesson there, it didn't get a lot of attention. But when you blast out 25 new lessons in torts or crim law or something like that, it got more attention. And we've run 10 or 12 or 13 fellowships since then, and produced hundreds of lessons that way. There was all kinds of great side effects. It turns out that law faculty don't like their colleagues at their school. And so by bringing 5 faculty from 5 different schools, they were able to make friends, and they like that. I know I'm kidding a little bit, but there's a little bit of truth in that, right? There was also a little bit of competition, and I mean this in a polite way among it. In other words, they would write their lessons, and then we would make them look at each other's lessons, for 2 reasons. One, we wanted them to feel the pressure of, wow, I got to show this to my colleagues. I better do a good job. But more importantly, we thought if there's 5 experienced instructors in the room, then all of them are going to be smarter than any one of them when they're talking about or have the best examples for whatever narrow topic that they were offering the lesson on. The wisdom of the many became something that we could leverage with that. So the fellowships has been fantastic for us. And, the friendships. And a lot of them have remained friends of each other and of us over the years. It's been great. The last one of my best of is engagement. And engagement here is we found lots of ways to structure. We have created structured opportunities. And that's important, the structured part, for people to contribute to Cali. So the fellowships are the ones that I just talked about. But also there's the board of directors, of which some of my bosses are in the room. There's the conference speakers, a structured way to contribute. There's the Cali editorial board. Can't say enough positive about them. They save our bacon because they're the ones that tell the authors that some things could be improved or fixed or are broken. So we don't always have to be the bad guy doing the corrections, things like that. And for the most part, we've leveraged our engagement with all sorts of folks in the legal education community pretty, oh, there we are, pretty well. So Elmer's just put up on Zoom, how many conferences have you attended? Elmer, there's not one for 32.
Sorry.
I'm flexing there a little bit, but I'm the only one who's attended 32 conferences. All right, so this is just a pastiche of Cali authors over the years. So now let's get to the fun part, right? All right, the worst. Cali. All right, fine. Failures, mistakes, missteps, confessions. No. Let's take a positive look at this. Let's call it learning opportunities of 40 years. All right. Before I get into that, are there any other positive things about Cali that anybody else would like to contribute? Oh, the flying monkeys. When you're, oh, I got one up in my office. I'll bring it up.
For newer.
We gave away monkeys, and if they moved, they were motion censored. They would go. And as the conference progressed, they became a replacement for applause. So at the end of us talk, everybody, rather than clapping, would just hit the monkey, and then there would be a whole room of monkeys. Elvis, the Vegas conference. It was the time when Elvis Presley, who's not dead, came and opened up the conference. I asked him for a favor. I helped him out years ago when he had a flat tire on the road. Yeah. Emily.
Having all these really smart Cali staff in the office.
Yeah, well, don't get used to it.
I mean, previously the quarantine.
That's right. This is the first time I've been to my office in about 8 months. No, that's not true. Yeah, well, almost like that. Yeah. Well, a lot of us was in WFA, working from home. All right. Thanks. Thank you for that. And Elmer, you'll let me know. You can close the poll at this point. And you'll let me know if other people contribute online other things positive about Cali. We're not going to do this for the negative, by the way. I'm not stupid. All right. Missteps, learning opportunities. So we used to, in the 90s, we tried to do a thing called the Troutman Cali lesson competition. And the idea was, if you hold a competition and offer prizes, a whole bunch of people would write lessons. But it kind of worked. I mean, this isn't a total failure or a bad thing. We got some good lessons out of it. The problem was it was kind of anti-cooperation, right? You know, everybody was working on their own thing rather than the wisdom of many sort of thing that we came to use with fellowships. You know, and with a fellowship, everybody's a winner because they're all contributing and making each other's stuff better. And with a competition, there's only one winner. So it wasn't a great idea. We did it for a couple of years and then dropped it, right? Cali Service Awards. Back at the 20th anniversary conference, at the dinner that we had at the museum right after Sue, the Tyrannosaurus Rex had been installed, by the way. Yeah, we had way better conferences then, didn't we? We gave away service awards to people, authors, people who had spoken at more than 5 or 10 conferences, you know, people who had worked on projects with us. You know, this is not the Cali Award, which you got for getting the highest grade in the class. And it's not that this was a bad idea, it's that we didn't do enough of it. We didn't follow through on it. It just got to be something that dropped off the edge of the earth for me. So anyhow, it was a pretty good idea. I should add, and maybe the flip side of this is there was a point where we were publishing lessons on CDs, right? And so at one point we took the CDs and we glued them onto a plaque and then put the author's name on the plaque and passed these out to over 100 authors. And on more than a half a dozen occasions, I would visit the author and there was their Cali Grammy on the wall. Now, once we stopped publishing things on CDs, it got hard to do that, right? What are we gonna do? Photocopy the internet and put it on a plaque? I don't know. There's nothing to do there. All right, a couple more bad ones. A to J author for clinics. When we first wrote A to J author, our idea was this is perfect for clinics, right? Because clinics want to engage the students in helping the poor and stuff like that. And what we didn't figure out was that clinics don't want to take students away from talking to clients. They want to put students in front of clients. That's the whole point, or one of the major points of clinics, is for students to gain that sort of interpersonal experience in dealing with real live clients. And so the idea, and so our marketing went hard at clinics, like you should do this, you should do this. And it was met with like, you're not understanding what we do here. Which is not to say that clinics can't use A to J author should they desire. It just wasn't the optimal way to get A to J used in a lot of law schools.
I know, it's a great idea.
Thank you. Right. All right, some bad tech choices we made. So we used Folio. We actually did electronic casebooks in 1992 and used Folio Views. And how many people don't know what Folio Views is? Yeah, that's all right. It's a great tool. We at one point, when Windows first came out, Windows 3.1, I should say, wow, really dating myself now, 91, 92. We used Toolbook to convert or write a bunch of lessons because it had more of a graphical interface, buttons, scroll bars, and things like that. It was a disaster when Toolbook sort of morphed into something else. And of course, we used Flash for Cali Author, and we used it for A to J Author, which was a good idea. Damn it. It was a good idea because of the browser wars. In the browser wars, you couldn't write good HTML because Netscape and Internet Explorer were fighting it out. And so we retreated to Flash where we controlled the environment, and that was brilliant. Until those niches, those tools did not win their niche, and then Steve Jobs, decided to hate us, Flash. So, okay, I'm almost done with this. In 2003, we came up with the idea of the Consortium for Distance Education from Cali, called it Codec. How clever. How clever were we? And of course, in 2003, that was way too soon for distance learning. And the other thing was we thought this was going to be an administration problem. The problem is going to be the registrars don't know how to register people from other schools. And we need to work out those policy issues at that level. That's stupid. That was stupid. What else? It meant less agency for faculty. Faculty became like, oh, we could like, you could teach at this class at this school, and you could teach at this school. We're not going to pay you more. We imagined a marketplace of courses that could be assembled from multiple schools or something like that. And we thought schools would think about that, but the power in law schools is faculty. They didn't think too much of that idea. It was probably too soon. All right, so nice try for that, agency idea. All right, the last big mistake that I want to talk about or thing is that we've always struggled with getting word out, with telling people about what Cali is doing, what we're about. We're like a lot of things, and we're not like a lot of things. And so when it's hard sometimes for people to compare us. We're not a vendor. I often say that to people. The most common thing I hear when I give talks to faculty is, I didn't know you did that. And it's something we've been doing for 30 years. And I think all the emails, all the brochures and things, have been wasted. All right, how many Cali conferences have you attended? Yeah, 23% 1, 43% 2 to 5, 18% 6 to 10, and 16% 10 plus. Cool. And we'll close that. All right. There is no good there is no competition. There's nothing like Cali lessons. There are some things like Cali lessons, but for a long time there was nothing like it. And it turns out being the only one in a market is often a bad thing, because people don't say, well, what's that like? It's like, well, it's like nothing else. It teaches on a computer. Now, I mean, people know about tutorials and things like that, but as that applies to law school, that was a difficult concept, and it has always been a difficult one. We do new stuff all the time, but it's hard to be new all the time. And so for 40 years, you know, when somebody comes out with something and says, hey, we're going to do something, it's like, yeah, we looked at that 15 years ago, or we literally did that 25 years ago, you know, and it's still there, it's still working and stuff like that. But the biggest problem I think we're having right now in terms of getting the word out is noise. And I want to get a little serious for a moment, because it relates to this. The world right now seems to be insisting that you pay attention to everything all at once forever. Constantly bombarded. And I don't mean good news, I mean bad news. And I mean bad news like school shootings. On the day that happened, my Twitter feed just turned into nothing but school shooting responses. When the war in Ukraine started, all social media, I don't watch much cable or anything like that, but it was wall-to-wall coverage of that thing, and it was depressing as hell. I don't know what's going on with the Supreme Court, and I'm not even a lawyer, you know, so I'm not an inside baseball person there, but I'm scared to death of what's happening with that. And of course, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. All of these all at once, all the time, and I haven't even talked about climate change and so many other things, right? Well, Kim Stanley Robinson is a science fiction writer, and he coined a term called polycrisis. And that's where we're at. We're in the middle of a polycrisis, multiple crises, and that's going to be our, as the dean said, our new normal going forward. And it's frightening, but to get practical for a moment, it means it's hard to get people's attention for normal or positive stuff. They're distracted. We're distracted. I'm distracted by these things, and even stressed out an awful lot. Right? I was explaining to somebody that I hadn't been in the office for a while, and I'm coming here, and I just realized I have acquired agoraphobia. You know, I can put on extroversion, but I prefer to be introverted. I want to go home and put on my pajamas and zoom into this conference myself. So it's a weird time to be trying to talk about positive things like innovation and technology and such as that. All right, so let's wrap this up. The next 40, and I don't mean the next 40 because any predictions or ideas beyond like 2 or 3 years is fantasy, right? Right. So the first one that I think is going to be big is gamification. Roll your eyes, Homer. But I'm inspired by 2 books of many that I've been reading, but 2 books especially: Yukai Chao's Gamification, Actionable Gamification, and Dane McGonigal's Reality is Broken. In Actionable Gamification, he breaks down what it means to gamify something, and he's not necessarily talking about games. He's talking about the mechanics of games that become motivators, why people do things in systems, not just computer systems. You know, whether they pursue epic meaning, whether they're trying to accomplish something, whether they feel empowered, whether they are, worried about unpredictability, or they're avoiding a bad thing from happening, or whether they feel like they can take ownership, get a credential or something like that. I can't even go into it, but it's a very dense and fascinating book that breaks it all down into how, and because I'm in the law school and legal education business, I'm constantly like, oh my gosh, I see gamification everywhere in greater and lesser, or I see gamification done wrong everywhere. All right. The Reality is Broken book points out that there's an awful lot of gamers, right? 2/3 of the US are regular gamers. The average age of gamers in the US is 35. So it's not just the kids, okay, boomer? It's not just the kids doing this, it's all of us, right? And it's not just World of Warcraft or Modern Warfare. It's casual games, it's word games, it's games in which could be turned to educational purposes. And so I tweeted this out about a month ago. Why isn't education more like a video game? In other words, instead of like the speed run through 14 weeks of the class, and then you got to fight the big boss called the final exam, and you win or lose, you play and lose, and then play some more and get better, and play some more until you win. And then maybe you can play some more until you become not just the winner, but like, winner with higher points and stuff like that. Why isn't the gaming model, at least that mechanic, the one that we should apply to lead to education? Because our goal in education isn't only to ferret out the people who are going to fail and be bad lawyers, but to actually make people into better lawyers, right? So there's lots of ways we can gamify legal education. I'm not going to try to do a total brainstorm here. Casual games for what I would consider legal education literacy, finding the hidden objects, issue spotting, and of course simulations like the interactive video discs that I wish I could demonstrate that Callie was working on back in the 80s, right? Maybe that turns into something that we do with VR, but I have my doubts about VR. And besides, before you would put it into a helmet in VR, you would put it on the screen. All right. And if you want to get radical here, we should redesign all of legal education. Play until you demonstrate high competence, not just competence, high competence. Take the test over and over and over. Make it really hard until you pass. Right? Hard mode. In other words, if there's a hard mode of legal education because you want to get an upgraded credential or something like that. Think of faculty as dungeon masters, and think of the course as a dungeon where you beat, better, smarter and smarter bosses. This could make it fun. Wow, education is fun, and it doesn't necessarily mean that making it fun makes it easy. All right. So my point is that gamification, I think, is something we're going to study so that we can use the same motivational mechanics and the analytics that we get back, and we're gonna make education better. It doesn't have to be that way. The second big thing that's got to be dealt with in the near future: access to justice. Law schools have got to have a stake in this space. It's so bad. There are so many people struggling so hard to solve their problems and losing their lives and their homes and other problems. Everything that we can teach people about access to justice tools or techniques is absolutely in the realm of law schools and applicable to technology law schools. There should be A to J clinics in every school, or A to J law review, or A to J fellowships or mentorships. There's all sorts of models for that sort of thing. We've done some of that by training people or creating course materials. But at this point, I want to shout out to others this is already happening at other schools, right? Suffolk's Legal Innovation Lab is doing fantastic work and working with the Massachusetts courts on that. And of course, Georgetown's Iron Tech Lawyer competition every year encourages students to do projects in this. I think there's room and it's worthy work to do a lot more of that. So I wanted to ask you, who said this? Automating all the easy court forms in every state would help millions and save billions of dollars. Anybody know who said that? Smart ass. Yeah, that was me. I believe that to be true. So last big sort of future thing, we can radically expand OER, open education. This is Callie's sort of beginning foray into that. We get 50 or 100,000 downloads of our free case books every year. I call that a good start. All right. The fact that open books can be the largest publisher or the largest market segment is within reach. And I think we should grab for that, because there's all kinds of values there. Live lecturing is not the best pedagogical model. I'm convinced of that because I read a book called What's the Use of Lectures? And he lays out in 300 pages why lectures don't work as the most efficient way to transfer information. Or if you're going to lecture, here's the best way to make them as good as you can make them. Yes, Khan Academy, Zoom School of Law. Yes, Khan Academy. But it was Zoom School of Law the last couple of years of the pandemic that convinced me that we should record lots of law faculty explaining the law and make it available for free and let students use that as a backup. It doesn't have to be the legal education they get, but it could be additional legal education that backstops them to make them smarter. Isn't that the goal? everything I've read about the Zoom School of Law, about the recorded professor says, students love to be able to pause their professors. They love to be able to play them at 2x. They love to be able to take them off the screen and stick them on their, iPhone so they can listen to them or read the transcript, which has been automatically generated by Zoom. All things you don't get if you are only listening to a live lecture. So with all that benefit, it's like if you're paying faculty that much, then grab that value and record it. Because that can benefit students, down the line. All right. So what I'm really talking about, though, is that we're fighting to change hard things, system change, right? And Cali represents a model that's sort of like gravity. We want to pull people away from the inevitable for-profit model that says, if we do this thing that makes more money, but doesn't benefit or actually damages education, we'll make more money. That's a bad decision that we want. We want to skew away from that so that decisions are being made for educational purposes because it's a nonprofit. We're not trying to make more money, right? And that means core competencies like writing casebooks, like creating educational teaching materials, like software that could be used to make these things should be inside law schools, not bought from vendors who, to a large degree, go out of business in a couple of years, or pivot off to more profitable markets. There is no distance learning, just learning. There is no ed tech, just education. There is no tech competency, just competency, right? Technology is ubiquitous here. But of course, tech is a power tool and it's an expertise amplifier. And I got my little asterisk there because it also amplifies stupid. So I'm back to my noise, right? That we see that this wonderful thing that we invented called the internet with all where we can all talk to each other. And I don't want to talk to any of you now. Or there's a lot of you I don't want to talk to, not the people in this room. So we can't outsource that either because it's too important. So that's my talk, the next 40, gamification, formative assessment, and helping us focus on the in the midst of the poly crisis, what I call motivation engineering or cognitive load balancing, access to justice, the duty of every lawyer, law school to address, and open resources, which brings agency to people and is a core competency of legal education and saves you money. So that's my talk. 40 years of legal ed tech. How about 40 more years? I would hope. There we go. That went on a little longer than I expected. I apologize. Let's get our break in and then try to start at the top of the hour when we're supposed to. All right. So break time. Back here at 11. Yeah. All right. I will mute this computer.